Hey everyone, we have to talk about the latest Leafs trade rumors and other rumors coming from Elliotte Friedman's 32 Thoughts. If you're new to the channel, welcome. I hope you hit that subscribe button, like, comment, notification bell, all that good stuff. Using Joseph Zeta, my guy's tweet here, just to kind of bring the quotes into the picture here. One other guy I think the Maple Leafs are in on is Jack Roslovic, and it makes sense to me because he has a history with Austin Matthews. They played together at the U.S. development program, so I could see this connection. That's from Elliotte Friedman's 32 Thoughts podcast. Also adding to this, Roslovic is also a right-hand shot. He's a veteran. He's been around a long time. Matthews obviously knows him. I'm curious to see if this happens. So I also wanted to talk about on this video and on X, Jack Roslovic, definitely more of an offensive guy, sometimes a defensive liability. He scored over 20 goals. I think there's a way for the Leafs to figure something out here. The buzz and kind of speculation around Friedman and other reports is that Roslovic is waiting for the Leafs to move out some salary, whether that be Cal Yarncrow or David Kampf. There's been conversation that the Leafs were trying to get other guys, and just it didn't work because either those players didn't want to wait or the cap picture just didn't make sense. The Leafs wanted to leverage their cap space into the offseason for trades or whatever it may be. Again, Nick Robertson being an RFA. There's different conversations here, but he also brought up Dougie Hamilton, and I also added it to my reply. To be clear, he's kind of putting Roslovic connected with the Leafs directly, but Dougie Hamilton's been connected with the Leafs in the past, and Brad Trey Living, a bit of a connection there with his interests. So I think the Calgary Flames, of course, traded Dougie Hamilton once upon a time ago, so that's also the connection with Trey. But I just look at different opportunities here for the Toronto Maple Leafs, leveraging that cap space. Dougie Hamilton's $9 million cap hit, with the Devils getting Nemec and Seamus Casey, those defensive guys coming up, younger right shot defensemen. So this was kind of the mock lineup I put together, but then after I was kind of talking about it, like Bobby McMann could be one of the pieces going to New Jersey in that trade. So we need to keep an eye on these two guys because they're actually the two guys that would probably, I would say, resolve two big needs for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Roslovic, more of that secondary scoring aspect, but it could also be on that top line with Austin Matthews. So this is kind of what I had. Matthews, Roslovic, Nyes, Michelli, Waugh, and Nylander. Tavares down to the third line to add that crazy depth. And then I would see one of McMahon or Domi probably traded. So if that's the case, then you maybe see a Cowan or a Robertson in there, or a Nyes, I was going to say, like fall down in the lineup a little bit. But I think they want to keep Nyes and Matthews together, so that's going to be curious too. But again, I think there could be a scenario where it's like a package built around Bobby McMann with Oliver Ekman-Larsson. So OEL, McMahon, and then other pieces to New Jersey for Hamilton. And again, that's very much a cap savings move for the Devils. They have a lot of defensemen up and coming, and specifically a couple offensive guys on the right side with Casey and Nemec. So that's something to talk about. I also wanted to make it clear again, I know some people have given me some crap. I'm not pro trading Callan, but at the same time, Leaf fans need to realize if you want to get a legit top six forward like an Alex Tuch or one of these big forwards, Callan is just the starting piece. Like, we're talking about guys that scored 35 plus goals last year in either Jason Robertson or Alex Tuch, or go down the list. Those guys, it's going to take an Easton Cowan plus. So if you don't like that, then I guess move on with the conversation. But if you want a legit top six forward to go next to Matthews or complement Nylander on that second line, you're going to have to give up Cowan. If not, then Roslovic is the secondary option in the free agent market, and then maybe you go for more offense from your defense, which would be acquiring a guy like Dougie Hamilton who can quarterback your power play. And I mean, we've seen him put up 40, 50 points a season. So 40, 50 points a season for a guy, that's, I would say, a lot more than a lot of other guys on the back end for the Leafs. I would say OEL probably puts up 70% of that. I think he's in around 30 points a season. So that's kind of what you're getting from OEL versus a guy like Dougie Hamilton, but you're paying $6 million more a year essentially. My guy downtown, Steven, says Jack Roslovic is a decent player, does a little bit of everything offensively. His 21 even strength goals last year were tied with Crosby, Matthews, Rantanen, Kaprizov, Aho, and one more than Marner. So that's kind of the conversation. But another thing brought up from David Alter, Roslovic was scratched by the Hurricanes in some of their playoff games. He was a healthy scratch for 6 of Carolina's 15 playoff games. It kind of gives me vibes of Nick Robertson a little bit. Like, if you really think about it, it's kind of that vibe. Nick Robertson had, 15 goals? Of course, was scratched in a lot of the playoff games, most of the playoff games. So Roslovic, a little bit more offensive, maybe just more experienced. I think he's about 28 years old. And I think he is due a raise from his $2.8 million cap hit. So I think for the Leafs, it's just a matter of if they do sign Roslovic, is it with term or is it short term? I would say He's probably going to want over $3 million. I was thinking 3.5 per year, I think is a fair number, especially if you can move Kampf and Yarncrow out. So I'm thinking if it's a shorter term deal, like a 1-year deal, maybe it's as high as like $4 million. But maybe you could get that number a little bit down if you give him 3 to 4 years. Like I'm thinking what you gave Max Domi is probably a comparable for Roslovic. So somewhere between 3 to 3.5 million with a 3 or 4 year term next to it. So I think that's going to be the difference if you give term or not, what that cap hit ends up being. And to give an idea on the other side, what the Devils lineup would look like if they do trade for if they trade Dougie Hamilton to the Leafs, they could get like a McMahon and Kampf into the bottom 6, and then you would be adding OEL into your top 4 with maybe some draft assets or whatever it may be. But I do think this gives the Devils the flexibility to go out and maybe get another forward. I know there's been rumors that maybe trade Mercer or Palat in that top 6. So that's a conversation for New Jersey. The Dougie Hamilton one is maybe a little bit more unrealistic, but I do think the Roslovic one is realistic, just in terms of the cap space the Leafs have right now. Adding another perspective on X, Jay on Leaf says, Roslovic is an interesting player for the Leafs, scored 22 goals in a right shot. I don't know if he scored 21 or 22. I don't think it really matters. Took a step in the faceoff circle last season, has killed penalties in the past. He isn't overly physical, but in his career, he hasn't had to be because he spends a lot of time in the O-zone. Yeah, I would just say you're not really looking for him to be on the defensive side of things. Very much, I want to say he's more one-dimensional on the offensive aspect, but in the forward aspect, he's definitely versatile in terms of the center and wing position. So we could see him on the top line on the right wing side with Austin Matthews, or you could see him as like a third-line center, depending on how they have Nick Waugh and Lawton in the lineup. Even Roslovic maybe on the second line with Nylander, depending if you can get more of a defensive guy on their wing, because I think that would be pure offense. So that would be a matchup game issue, unless you're just having those guys in O-zone starts. And then adding this summary from other conversations that Friedman had in 32 Thoughts regarding the Leafs, he said 3 or 4 teams were in on Michelli, Boston, Edmonton among them. So that's got to feel good for Leaf fans. The Leafs beating out Boston and Edmonton for Michelli. There's the connection with Shane Doan with the Coyotes organization. One other guy he thinks Leafs are in is Roslovic, so I already went over that. One of the reasons they didn't get Mangiapane was they indicated they had to move bodies out. He didn't want to wait. So that's kind of what I was talking about. Like Roslovic, I guess he's willing to wait. Other guys weren't. Friedman assumes Kampf and Yarncrow as the 2 guys potentially moving out. We know that. And then just the Leafs potentially moving a defenseman for a forward. So I've talked about Brandon Carlo. I do think it doesn't make much sense if Brandon Carlo is in a trade unless it's for a big-time top 6 forward. So Peterka was that example. For me, I would be open to trading Carlo if it's for a Jason Robertson or for an Alex Tuck. I know some people disagree with me on that, but you're talking about guys that can score 35 to 40 goals. That doesn't grow on trees. I understand Brandon Carlo's 6'5", right shot defenseman, doesn't grow on trees either, especially for a guy that can play in the top 4. But the Leafs have, I would say, built a bigger defense, and I do think that if they're confident Benoit is an everyday defenseman, then keeping Carlo potentially pushes out Benoit if you acquire one more guy. I just think there's the scenarios of Ben Danford coming in the next year or two. The Leafs have the term on their defense right now. So if Riley's staying, Tanev, McCabe, all those guys are staying I just mentioned, then at some point OEL and Carlo might be expendable, or like one of them is what I'm getting at. So if it's not for an upgrade, which that's why I talked about the Dougie Hamilton scenario, maybe it's for a forward. And if you can get a guy that's scoring 35 plus goals or has scored 35 plus goals in a few seasons and has shown those examples of that, then I think you do consider it. But again, that's a big conversation. If the Leafs want to go on the cheaper route and not move big pieces like that out, then just getting Jack Roslovic and his 20 plus goals is probably the next best option. So we'll see. You do have Devils fans on X saying trading Dougie Hamilton's a terrible idea, so keep an eye on that. And Darren Dreger also said this on First Up, and he included Max Domi in the conversation of guys they can move out for cap. I still think their focus is going to be Yarncrow and Kampf because Domi brings a different element in the playoffs. Overall, give me your guys' thoughts on the Roslovic target. Again, this was kind of just an on-the-fly. I wanted to record this right away today on Sunday just to get the conversation out there. Maybe I'll do some mock trades if you guys want. There's other conversations I want to have. I know some Sabres fans have reached out to me doing mock trades for Bowen Byram. Other things like Utah with their conversations on Jack McBain and other guys in the organization, Nick Schmaltz. Are they in the future for those teams? But again, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who they're targeting, I think Dougie Hamilton and Roslovic's names have been out there. So we'll see if one of those guys come to fruition. I think Roslovic's more likely in terms of the free agent market, but I do think the Leafs have a trade up their sleeve this offseason, or maybe a couple. So thanks for watching. Hit that subscribe, like, comment, notification bell. We'll see you on the next one. Peace.